Yuval, thank you very much. Yuval's company has had a great deal to do with the early application of customer service that will help cable operators to better deal with the traditional kinds of concerns that have arisen in the past relating to customers. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Yuval.
Yeah. Well, our company was founded to actually solve what we call the cable guy problem. Of course, everybody's experienced waiting at home for a cable appointment, not knowing when the technician's going to arrive. Our solution, it's a software solution that manages all the mobile workforce, the technicians, with a view towards predicting when an appointment will actually happen. So we have a web-based solution that basically measures everything that happens in the field and uses that to predict with a high degree of accuracy through statistical analytics when the appointment's actually going to happen and relay that information to customers. So really communicate that to customers using all the different channels of media that exist today, from text through obviously interactive voice response to Twitter, through the web. So really every possible means of communications, but it's really a complete solution for managing the cable workforce, the technician workforce, with a view towards the customer experience and making sure that customers don't have to be prisoners of their own homes like we all know that we've been in the past. And our solution can actually reduce the time that customers have to wait to 1 hour with 98% accuracy. So we can predict a 1 hour window for customers with 98% accuracy and communicate that to the customers.
Can you talk to me a little bit about something the Carmel Group has followed for years and years and that we're particularly interested in, and that is trends. What kind of trends are you seeing in your particular part of the business as they relate to cable?
It's all about communication, really, and the growing interaction between companies and their customers around social media, in a sense. And in fact, we just did a survey, a study of the effects of the voice of the customer on Twitter in relation to their experience. And so we did a survey for about 2 months to look at what kind of power Twitter gives to customers' voice that they didn't actually have before, and we got some really interesting findings that I think reflect the trend towards customers using social media to say what they're thinking, both not just thinking about what they're doing or politics, but also their experiences as customers. So we found that that customers use Twitter to talk about, to really broadcast when they're not happy, primarily. Not so much when they go to the company's web Twitter site, but when they actually use their own handle, they'll talk about the fact that they're not happy about some aspect of customer service. So really overall, we found that that if customers are tweeting about you, you should actually listen because they're probably not happy. And in fact, through a statistical sampling that we did of about 2,000 tweets regarding particularly the customer wait, the appointment wait window, we found that about 80% of the tweets were actually, in fact, about 82% of the tweets were voicing some dissatisfaction, somewhat negative or negative. And that really reflected the way that the people chose to use Twitter and really affect the in a sense, the brand and the brand equity. So it's very interesting that Twitter is not just a way for people to say about what they're doing, but really to broadcast, obviously, out to the world, and the effect of that is quite significant. In fact, we see that there's a huge network effect of tweets, and in fact, 2,000 people that we measured impact about 1 million people. So they have about 1 million followers. So,
wow.
In the past, if you didn't have, if you waited for the cable guy, probably told your wife or your mother or your girlfriend or your friends or somebody at work that you were unhappy. But today, if you just look at the statistics, people, 2,000 tweets impact about 1 million people, and the network effect, the fanning effect of that is quite significant. So, companies have to actually listen to what customers are actually tweeting about in order to basically try and, direct their strategies for customer service and customer experience. And I think in the cable world, that's especially strong because there's a high frequency of interaction with customers. So when you look at some of the numbers that we're showing here, very significant numbers on the negative side when people are tweeting, but you can see the impact is quite it's quite tremendous. So one person can actually impact 50,000 people. So that's pretty amazing.
So if one were to do, hypothetically, a Hollywood movie today called The Cable Guy, the outcome might be a little bit different than one was done maybe 10 years ago.
Well, if you remember the Seinfeld episode where Kramer, had this whole relationship with the cable guy, it was all around, using a phone, and the guy was in the phone booth, and probably, Kramer would be using Twitter, and they'd be having some kind of Twitter battle in public, and the effect of that obviously would be much more significant. The other, side that we found, which I think is also very interesting, is that even in the realm of positive tweets, so, when you look at the 82% that were negative, there were some positive tweets, but even there, it ranged between some level of cynicism or but the positivity was always tainted. It wasn't, a straightforward positivity. It was actually a place to voice concern or voice, people just sitting at home, and that's what they're doing, getting online, or using their phone and tweeting about it. So it's a very significant, I think, trend, and one that companies really have to relate to. And I think when you look at the strategies for addressing this issue. So first thing, you want to get your name out of Twitter in a sense. Even though we look at some of the big cable companies that have created Twitter sites and use Twitter as a place to actually communicate with their customers, that's not so much the problem. The problem is actually when people are twittering or tweeting outside the cable handle, the Comcast handle, or the Time Warner cable handle, or whatever it is, and we look at some of the things that they're tweeting about. You can see in this graph that a lot of it has to do with how long I had to wait, right, and how I was inconvenienced about it, and they're letting people know, and so it really perpetuating what is already a bad perception about the cable guy problem, and waiting for waiting at home without knowing when the technician will arrive. So what we're talking about a lot is, using these kinds of this kind of information, this kind of data. You can actually begin to divine the company where there are customer service problems, and some of them are well known, but it's clear that when you actually have such a big network effect, such a fanning effect of the voice of the customer, you really need to relate to solving those problems and doing so in a proactive way, and really incorporating a strategy for addressing the tweets, and then figuring out how to actually solve the problem of the tweet. So that's what we're trying to do here, really focus on where there are issues, and really presenting and providing that information to the different companies that we work with, to help them address those issues preventatively. So that's really the other side of it, is really how do you actually prevent some of this behavior. And of course we talk a lot about the fact that the sort of confluence of communications and computing allows companies like the cable companies in this show to do a lot more predictive activity in terms of predicting where there will be problems in the future. And one of the things that we talk about a lot is really using analytics and statistical analytics and the kind of things that we espouse to better serve the customers, really looking for when things will actually happen in the future, and communicating that information out to customers. So that's been a big focus of ours, really, to use past performance and juxtapose that with things that customers actually are focused on in terms of their customer service problems, right, and predicting the future on that basis.
We have time for one more quick question, short answer.
Yeah.
How are your customers, the cable companies, responding to this new opportunity? What's their feel? What's the feedback you're getting?
Very good. Obviously, the beauty of technology is that you're constantly trying to solve problems in an innovative and an interesting way. And we're putting forth both the problem and the solution, really, and focusing on where customers are, hurting, and at the same time, really putting together a web-based solution that's easy to use and easy to implement, and something that really customers want. Ultimately, customers want to have the information, and when they have information, they tend to not go online and tweet about it. And that's really what everybody wants. I mean, obviously, the brand equity issue is significant.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Could you help me and give a hand to Yuval Brisker, the president and CEO of TOA Technologies?